We welcome you to the fourth episode of Talking Blizz with Joey Bonadonna. This week we have quarterback number 2, Jerome Johnson, joining the show. Jerome, welcome in, man.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Coming off of the bye week. Last time out, you guys took down the Iowa Barnstormers for your first win of the season, and pretty good outing from you at quarterback. But obviously, since then, you had that week off. Did you guys get some rest? And how is that week for you guys?
It was a big rest week, but me and some of the guys got together and still went to the gym to, stay in football shape. Just because of the bye week don't mean you can't do anything with football.
Right. Absolutely. I mean, a big one this week coming up with Sioux Falls starting up a back-to-back matchups with them. You go out to Sioux Falls and then get to play them immediately on Friday night
hmm
back at home. But looking back at the stats from last week, taking down Iowa by a score of 44-25, um, probably the most complete game we've seen from the squad in some time. Not even just this season, but for games past, this was probably the most complete performance we've seen. For you at quarterback, 11 for 17, 148 yards, 2 touchdowns, and then as well 55 yards on the ground on 11 attempts and 3 touchdowns. What was the mentality? We talked to Terrence Smith last week, who also had a great game. But what was that mentality going into that game? And obviously that was an important win to get, but what was the talk like going into that week?
All week was just, win a week. We got to win each day. That way, by the time game time come, we prepared and we can win the game. But it was a must needed game to win. We all, came together and did our jobs. We all won.
Absolutely. So that's your first win of the season. Moving to 1-2 in a big game in the Eastern Conference. And now, as just mentioned, you go into the game, back-to-back games against Sioux Falls. And we'll touch on that later in the episode. But now to kind of just get a sense of who Jerome Johnson is. Originally, you're from Washington, D.C. That's your hometown. What was it like growing up in the area and being able to be introduced to football at a young age?
It was fun, growing up the way I did. My mom and two sisters. Mom always made sure we had what we needed, and the kids used to always go play football and basketball outside. But I really didn't get into football until I got to high school. I was more of a basketball guy. My mom
Mhm.
played basketball, so I just was naturally good at it. And once I seen how good I was, I started taking it serious in high school, and it got me here.
And how was that recruiting process for you? Coming out of a hot recruiting area like DMV. What was that recruiting process like for you?
My recruiting process was kind of long because it took me a little minute to get the SAT score I needed to going to a public school and whatnot. But I finally figured my way out and ended up going to UVA Wise. I was there for 2 years, and then I transferred to Bowie State, where I finished my college ball at.
Yeah, and at Bowie State, obviously a successful finishing 2019 season for you guys. Went 11-1 en route to the Division II playoffs. You're the first team all CIAA quarterback, CIAA Offensive Player of the Year, Division II Offensive Player of the Year, All American at the D2 level. A successful season there, both throwing the ball and on the ground as well. And that's transitioned here to this indoor game. And you see a lot of the successful quarterbacks in the IFL. They're able to throw it and they're able to pass it. When you signed in the IFL, did you kind of know that your skill set would fit in the IFL? And how has that transition from the outdoor to indoor game served you so far?
It's playing the indoor game plays into my strength, which is running the ball. But I can still make the throws when I need to. But before I signed here, I had talked to my coaches from Bowie because we had one that played arena ball.
Mm-hmm.
So he kind of gave me, the rundown, what to expect and what not to expect. So I was kind of prepared before I got here. Yeah.
Yeah, starting off this season, um, you did end up getting the starting nod in that first game against Frisco. Um, the coach did turn to Max Myler at halftime of that game, but since then, you've kind of established yourself as the number one guy and have had success in these last couple of games. Um, Currently sitting with 408 passing yards, 6 touchdowns, and then on the ground, 5 touchdowns to kind of even out that attack. Um, it has being able to run the ball always been a big strength of you, even strength for you, even going back to your high school days.
Yeah, I was always one of the fastest guys on the field, so running was never really an issue with me. It just played into my strengths. I was always able to extend plays, make some when, the plays break down and whatnot. So it was always a helpful thing to be able to run.
And not just that, but currently after 3 games played for most of the league, you're still sitting at number 2 in passing yards, even only playing the first half of that Frisco game. Throwing the ball definitely doesn't seem to be a problem either. You've been able to take those deep shots, take the top off the defense, and that's how a lot of um, the passing offense has opened itself up.
Mm.
Have you enjoyed being able to take those the deep shots on this 50-yard field?
Oh yes, definitely easier with the smaller ball. I can throw it as far as I can.
And the receiving game as well. You guys have brought in a very solid um, a solid receiving room, obviously with Steve Newbold and Shaq Currington returning, but also Marquise Irvin has established himself as one of the top receivers for the team and the league in general. Raheem Harvey brings in a lot of experience. Um, Mike Green, who looked great in camp and still he's been around the team. What have you liked about this receiving room here to start this season?
They all hold each other accountable, so it's no pointing fingers. It's always one of them get each other better. When someone mess up, they let them know what they did wrong, and we fix it from there. So it's more of like a brotherhood with the receiver group. They go hold each other accountable to make sure they do what they're supposed to.
And they talked about Terrence Smith a little bit earlier as well. Um, you guys have really been able to have success in that read option game, especially in the red zone, one of the top red zone offenses in the league. When in that goal to go opportunity, you guys both just seem to have a nose for the end zone. Is that a thing where you two are just cohesively on the same page, or is that just talent taking over in that backfield?
I mean, it's more so we both have the talent to run the ball, so we both make each other jobs easier. You can only stop one of us. So when the next person got the ball, it's gonna be a touchdown.
Absolutely. I mean, that has definitely been a big piece of in I think you see that with particularly Iowa, who you played last week early on. That was going to be a big part of their offense, but when eh, when DJP goes down, that's a big part of their offense, and you can see how quickly that falls apart when you don't have that um, quick attack that he was able to bring for them on offense last year, and really how crucially important that is for an offense to keep clicking. But moving forward, we were talking about that Sioux Falls game. You guys will have 2 matchups with them going forward. Green Bay, in all the years that they've played, Sioux Falls Storm have never beaten Sioux Falls on the road. They've come close a few times, but have yet to get that first win. They got the first win at home last season, but they're still looking for that first win on the road. Um, Obviously, that's a little bit of a looming thing, but obviously, just going into this week, I'm sure it's just another week, another opportunity for a win. What has that conversation been like to start this week?
Just make sure we win a day. So day in and day out, we can only control what happens during that day of practice. So we just got to make sure we fix everything up in practice, and by the time Sunday come, we all should be ready to play.
And then quickly turning around and getting to play them a second week in a row. That's fairly common in the IFL, just the way things get scheduled. But your first time in this league that you're going to get to be able to see this team back to back. How do you think that'll factor into being able to play them back at home, and seeing the same team 2 weeks in a row?
I mean, being back at home will help with the crowd, the noise, things of that nature. So should have an advantage at home, but still got to play our game, go out there, do what we do to get the win.
And one of my favorite questions to ask is, when talking with the players, what is one thing that Blizzard fans might not know about you? Might be like a favorite hobby, just a fun fact about Jerome Johnson, the person. What's one thing you'd want to share with the Blizzard fans?
I can't swim. That's the only
Cannot
thing I
swim.
can't do.
Cannot swim. Well,
Can't.
all right. Well, Blizzard fans, now you know that number two, Jerome Johnson, cannot swim. So that's your fun fact for the week. But yeah, just again, Sioux Falls is a tough, formidable opponent. They did just get their first win of the season last week, against Iowa, a common opponent there. And this is going to be a big one in the Eastern Conference. For several years, Sioux Falls has kind of dominated. It tapered off a little bit in the last couple of years, but obviously never an easy task to go in there and win a game. So it's going to be a fun one this weekend between Green Bay and Sioux Falls. Again, that game will be Sunday afternoon, 5:05 Central Time, and then they'll get to turn around and play Sioux Falls in the same week, Friday at 6:05 back at the Resch Center. But again, this week, game will be at Sioux Falls at 5:05. Watch party details will be on social media. Stay tuned for those. And with that, Jerome, you got anything else to share with us here before we sign off?
Uh, Not at the moment. Call me on the spot.
Yeah, a little bit. But hey, really thank you for your time this afternoon, and good luck this week against Sioux Falls.
Appreciate you.
Absolutely. And that'll just about wrap things up for Talking Blizz with Joey Bonadonna. For Jerome Johnson, thank you for tuning in. We'll see you in the next episode. And as always, go Blizz.